All right, hello and welcome to today's video where we're going to be talking about why beating ourselves up, looking for what we did wrong, trying to take responsibility for ourselves is not as empowering as we think it is. Okay? Many of us truly believe that in order to prevent making mistakes in the future, in order to save ourselves from the patterns that we're currently in that are causing us harm, that are causing other people harm, in order to grow, in order to change, in order to mature, in order to make better choices, we need to be looking at how we are failing right now, how we are failing ourselves, how we are failing to be mature, where we're doing things wrong, so that we can figure out how to change ourselves to make ourselves better. Okay? And most of us live, right, with a very harsh, very all-consuming, always present inner critic. That whenever we get hurt, whenever we experience something that doesn't go the way we thought it was going to go, whenever we're abandoned by somebody, whenever we make a mistake, whenever we hurt someone else, whenever we get hurt, whenever we can't achieve success by the standards of our family or by culture or by those around us who are judging us, we automatically go into, what did I do wrong? How was this my fault? What should I have seen that I didn't see? What should I have done differently? How was this something that I caused? And therefore, what should I be doing different? How can I blame myself so that in the future I won't make the same mistake? Right? That's how most of us are living our lives. Where when we get hurt, when life doesn't go how we wanted it to go, when we feel on any level like we're being rejected, or like we're not being loved, we're not being approved of, when we feel unsafe, when we feel like life goes in a way that we did not expect and it's harmful or hurtful, the automatic assumption is, what did I do wrong? How was this my fault? How did I deserve that? And what should I be doing differently so that that doesn't happen again? Okay? So when I talk so much about shame, blame, and guilt always being lies, a lot of people really struggle to connect with where they are stuck in shame, blame, and guilt. This is one of the biggest things that I work on with people in coaching because, again, actually developing the self-awareness that you are in a state of shame and in a state of blame and in a state of guilting yourself versus just objectively viewing reality for how it is and feeling shit about it because it's just true, is one of the hardest things most people that I work with will ever do. It is so challenging to be able to take a step back and witness that you are in shame, blame, and guilt, and not just viewing reality for how it is. That is what conditioning is. Okay? So this is why, again, the mystery school, which is now complete. I don't know if I've announced that yet in the videos, but now the mystery school has all 5 curriculums, all fully uploaded, all fully published. So from here on out, the entire mystery school is there for you. So if you want to sign up, you can sign up at any time. You can quit at any time. The whole 5-year-long curriculum is up and ready, which is really exciting. That was something that I worked on since 2019, I think. So that's really exciting. So just putting that out there. The mystery school is up and ready for you. And there's a reason that it's 5 years long. There's a reason that I meticulously went through this step-by-step process of becoming aware of our conditioning, becoming aware of our patterning, becoming aware of where we just automatically go into self-abandonment and where we go into our programs. Because seeing through your own conditioning, seeing through your own programming, seeing through your own patterns is so difficult. Okay? That's why I talk about this shame, blame, and guilt stuff in pretty much every video. Because most of us are so deep in our shame, blame, and guilt conditioned stories that we don't even see that it's a story. We don't see that it's something we can challenge. We don't see that it's something that we can question, that we can push back against, that it isn't just us observing reality for how reality is. This is something that, again, part of the reason why I shifted back into doing one-on-one work is because so much of the time, until someone is sitting with you and being like, okay, I'm hearing what you're saying. You're telling me your story. You're telling me your thoughts. You're telling me what happened. This is shame. This is blame. This is guilt. That's what you're feeling right now. It's not just an objective view of reality. It's not the true story. You're in shame, blame, and guilt right now. People aren't able to see it, right? Because it feels so true to us that this person hurt me or abandoned me. I should have seen it coming, right? So I want you to start to listen to some of these examples of where we go into shame, blame, and guilt, and see if you can recognize these thoughts in yourself. And if you can start to say, okay, that's not just an objective view of reality. That's shame, blame, and guilt. Okay? So someone hurts us, betrays us, harms us. We go, I should have seen that coming. I should have been able to predict that. Why did I not see that they were going to do that to me? Someone hurts us, crosses a boundary, makes us feel bad on some level. What did I do wrong to deserve that? What's wrong in my vibration that I attracted that? Why are they being mean to me? How did I deserve that? How was that my fault? What should I have said differently? How did I trigger them? How did I not predict their needs? How did I not predict their emotions? How did I not cater to what they needed? And therefore, of course they got mad at me. Of course they hurt me. Of course they did that. And that was my fault. Okay? That is shame, blame, and guilt. When something goes wrong with our bodies, we get sick, we get tired, we get injured. Again, why did I mess up my eating? I should have known that was going to happen. What did I do wrong in terms of my morning routine or my sleep or my habits? What did I not eat perfectly? What did I not do perfectly? How was that my fault? That's shame, blame, and guilt. Yeah? We don't have the career, or we look at our career and we say, it's not enough. I'm not successful enough. I'm not productive enough. This isn't the right type of work. I'm not doing enough work. My work isn't legitimate. It's not important. It's not valuable. It doesn't count. I should be doing more. I should be doing better. That's shame, blame, and guilt. Okay? Are you starting to see these patterns? When we get into that space of what did I do wrong to cause my own pain? What did I do to deserve someone being mean to me or bad to me? How is it my fault that when I don't feel good enough, when I don't feel adequate, when I feel like I'm failing at life, where am I failing? How do I suck? When someone is upset with you, or when someone is upset, and you believe it was your job to predict what was going to make them upset, to prevent what was going to make them upset, and that it's your fault that they are now upset, that's shame, blame, and guilt. Okay, are you starting to see this pattern? When you feel an emotion and you feel like you're not allowed to feel that, when you feel like your anger is wrong, like your sadness is wrong, like your resentment is wrong, like your grief is wrong, like your joy is wrong. If you feel like the things that you are attracted to and that you want to do in life are bad, shameful, make you a bad person, make you weak, make you weird, that's shame, blame, and guilt. When there are things in life that you really don't want to do, that you can't make yourself do, that you constantly tell yourself, okay, I'm lazy that I can't do that. I'm not intelligent and that's why I can't do that. I'm not good enough and that's why I can't do that. Everyone else is so much better than me and I'm just failing. I should be able to do that. And the fact that I can't is a sign that there's something wrong with me. That is shame, blame, and guilt. All of these things that our inner critic says to us is really the childhood voice saying, I can make my pain go away. I can make my life perfect and I can make myself perfectly safe if I just fix myself and all the things that are wrong with me that are making it so that I am in pain. Most of us do not recognize this as shame, blame, and guilt. Right? We recognize it as problem solving. We recognize it as taking responsibility for ourselves. We recognize it as truth. Of course I have to take responsibility for the emotions of others. It's my fault. Of course I should have seen that coming. Of course I'm not good enough. Of course I'm weak. Of course I'm lazy. Of course I should be doing this. Of course I shouldn't be feeling this way. Of course I shouldn't be wanting these things. We don't even notice that it's shame, blame, and guilt. And what's really happening is, again, when these stories are coming up and our inner critic is saying these things to us, What's really happening is we are trying to use pain as our childhood coping mechanism to change ourselves into what we believe we have to be in order to be loved, approved of, and safe. That is why we are shaming and blaming and guilting ourselves. So in all of the coaching work that I do, and we always want to look at, okay, first of all, can we recognize that we are shaming, blaming, and guilting ourselves? So all of those stories, all of those voices, everything that I just said, can you start to catch those thoughts? And rather than just believing them outright, can you start to say, wait a minute, that's shame, blame, and guilt. I'm shaming myself. I'm blaming myself. I'm making my pain my fault. I'm trying to empower myself in the childhood coping mechanism way that says the way that we get rid of pain, the way we get rid of pain is by figuring out how it's our fault that we caused that pain and fixing ourselves. That is where shame, blame, and guilt comes from. Okay? Shame, blame, and guilt is the childhood coping mechanism that says, when I am in pain, that pain is always my fault. That pain is always because I did something wrong. That pain is always because I failed to live up to expectation. So what is wrong with me that I need to fix so that the pain will go away? We need to start to recognize that. So awareness is key one. Second thing, compassion for that part of you that is in pain. When we are in shame, blame, and guilt, what's really happening is that we are hurting on some level. This is the big switch, the big key that I really want everyone to take away from this video. That behind shame, blame, and guilt, behind what did I just do wrong? How is this my fault? How am I failing? How did I cause that? Is I don't feel safe. I feel unsupported. I feel like whatever I just did is going to cause me to get rejected. I don't feel empowered. Someone just hurt me. And I'm trying to make it better by blaming and shaming and guilting myself. That's what's really going on. You're in pain. You're afraid. You're trying to stop yourself from doing something or expressing something or being something that's gotten you rejected or harmed or hurt in the past, or that you perceived got you rejected or harmed or hurt in the past. Or you're trying to make yourself be something that you think you have to be in order to be loved, secure, and safe. So when we're in shame, blame, and guilt, we are either trying to stop ourselves from expressing anger. If anger was something that our caregivers or our family of origin or our religion of origin told us was not okay. We're trying to stop ourselves from being expressive, creative, loud, obnoxious, whatever it is that's natural to us. Because in the past, that got us rejected. We're trying to stop ourselves from following a path that feels good to us by bringing up all the stories and all the memories of how whenever we did that, people got upset, people hated us, people rejected us. It hurt. And then we're trying to protect ourselves from that ever happening again. We're trying to stop ourselves from doing or being or expressing anything that got us rejected or harmed or hurt in the past. Or we're trying to make ourselves be something that we think will make us lovable and acceptable and worthy. Yeah, we're trying to shame ourselves into being more productive, into following a life path that we don't want to follow, but that we think and have been programmed and conditioned is the life path we have to follow in order to be good enough. We're telling ourselves, I'm lazy for not doing this, to try to force ourselves to do it. We're saying, I should have just seen and predicted their needs, as a way of trying to force ourselves to be more perceptive, to take care of other people's emotions, to try to be that codependent caregiver, to protect ourselves. We're trying to force ourselves to diet or to lose weight or to do whatever, because we truly believe that if we achieve that, if we accomplish that, we'll be loved and accepted and approved of, and then we will be safe. So again, all of this shame, blame, and guilt is rooted in the idea that if I change myself into this thing that my caregivers expected me to be, that the early authority figures in my life expected me to be, that I will then be perfectly loved. I will be perfectly safe. I will be provided for. I will be seen. I will be validated. And then my life will be good. That's really what's going on at the root of our shame, blame, and guilt. So most of us, when we start to actually investigate into what we think is empowerment, right? So we're operating under the whole, I just got hurt by somebody. I should have seen it coming. And that really feels like empowerment. I should have seen it coming. What were the things that I missed? How was that my fault? How did I trigger it? What did I do wrong that caused them to abandon me or hurt me? When we're in that place, the first thing we want to become aware of is, wait, this is not empowerment. This is not finding my power. This is me blaming and shaming and guilting myself as a way of trying to find my power. So we catch that. The next thing we do is we say, okay, wait a minute. What am I actually feeling right now? What am I actually feeling right now? If it's not that it's my fault that this person abandoned me, if it's not my fault that they just harmed me in some way, if I didn't deserve it, if I didn't do something to make it so that this person hurt me, what am I actually feeling? Am I feeling betrayed? Am I feeling let down? Am I feeling hurt? Am I feeling anger? Am I feeling resentment? Am I feeling sad? Am I feeling lonely? Am I feeling disgust or rage? What am I actually feeling if I'm not making this situation my fault or a sign that there's something wrong with me? That's where we really want to go. That's how we start to find our empowerment. We recognize that we're in shame, blame, and guilt, and then we ask ourselves what we're actually feeling. You would not believe how much in coaching sessions people are afraid to admit that they're angry or that they're sad or that they're feeling betrayed or let down, that they are upset at someone else. And how much catharsis and healing happens when they are allowed to just feel how they feel. Okay? This is where the New Age positivity cult gets it all wrong. We are told over and over and over again in spirituality and in self-help and in personal growth and all of these places that if we let ourselves get angry, especially at our caregivers for things they did to us when we were children, if we let ourselves say, the reason I have this pattern, the reason I have these negative voices in my head, the reason I have this behavior pattern, the reason I have this addiction, the reason I do this, the reason I do that, the reason I allow people to walk all over me, the reason I'm a people pleaser, whatever, is because in my childhood, I had to be that way in order to survive my childhood. Right? We're all so afraid that that means I'm victimizing myself and then I'll never recover and I'm just making excuses. We all believe if I don't look for what I did wrong in the relationship, it's just going to keep happening. If I don't look for how it was my fault and I just blame and get upset at the other person, I'll just be upset at the other person forever. These are the fears that come up, right? If I don't admit that I don't want to do that, and I'm never going to want to do that, I'll keep myself safe. If I don't let myself, right, so then in the I'm not doing enough, okay, what are you actually feeling? If what you're feeling right now isn't actually inadequacy, what are you really feeling? Are you feeling like that's just not something you're ever going to want to do? Are you feeling like that path is something that you don't actually value, but you're trying to do it because you know it would make your caregivers approve of you? Or society approve of you? Are you doing it because you want love? You want acceptance? You want safety? You want validation? Are you rejecting these parts of yourself? Because at the end of the day, you are feeling angry. You are feeling sad. You are feeling like you want to go on this path and do this thing. But you're so afraid if you do, you'll be abandoned. You'll be shamed. You'll be told you're not good enough. You'll be told you're wrong. You'll be told you're selfish. What are you afraid to let yourself admit you're feeling? That's the next step. So becoming aware that we're in shame, blame, and guilt. Noticing what those stories actually sound like. Asking ourselves what we are actually feeling and why we are afraid to let ourselves feel that. I'm going to get stuck in anger forever. I'm victimizing myself. If I admit that I don't like this, I'm never going to become who my caregivers wanted me to be, and then I'm never going to be loved and I'm never going to be safe. If I admit that this is what I really want, or this is how I'm really feeling, again, I'm never going to be approved of, I'm never going to be loved, I'm never going to be who they want me to be, and I'm scared. Can we start to let ourselves feel what we actually feel? That is step number 2. And then can we embrace and look at and investigate the fears that we have around letting ourselves feel what we feel? Because the next step is validating our feelings. And so, like I said, the way and the area where everyone gets this wrong is this idea that if we let ourselves feel angry, if we let ourselves get upset, if we let ourselves blame others for hurting us, if we let ourselves be resentful or hateful or blame our parents or any of these things, that means we're going to get stuck in it forever. That's where all the spiritual people go, right? If you let yourself get mad, you'll be mad forever. If you let yourself be sad, you'll be sad forever. If you let yourself be resentful, you'll be resentful forever, and you'll never get over it, and you'll never find your power, and you're just being in victim mode. The actual truth is the complete opposite. The longer we stay in shame, blame, and guilt, the longer we ignore what we're actually feeling, the longer we blame ourselves and never allow ourselves to process our true emotions or to be honest with ourselves about the things we really want and what we really don't want and all of these things, the longer we stay stuck in negative emotion. The longer we stay stuck in victimization. Because as you let yourself validate what you're actually feeling, when you really just let yourself be angry at your caregivers, when you really just let yourself be angry at whoever just hurt you, when you let yourself be sad about what you've been through, when you recognize where you were a legitimate victim to your circumstances, right? When you were a child and your caregivers were abandoning you or teaching you that your emotions were not okay or telling you that this is the way of life you have to live, and if you can't be like this, you are shameful and you're failing. When you were experiencing that, you were a victim. You had no power to make that different. You had no power to change that. And it deeply informed your nervous system and the way that you saw yourself and the way that you see the world. And that was not a choice you made. That was not your fault. And it had a big impact. That's true. You were a victim. When someone hurts you, abandons you, lets you down, and you make it all your fault, the truth is that you will never learn to set boundaries. You will never learn where you really could have said things and where your power really is, because you'll be stuck in trying to predict the behavior of everyone all the time. When you blame yourself for how people hurt you, you are not actually going to be able to recognize patterns and to stand up for yourself. Because you are blaming yourself for something that was not your fault. It is never your fault that someone hurts you. You don't deserve to be abandoned or abused. Where the real empowerment is going to be found is in letting yourself be upset, letting yourself process that, letting yourself be angry, letting yourself say, no, you just really should never have treated me that way. I shouldn't have had to predict that you were going to abandon me like that. I shouldn't have to have survived a childhood where my needs weren't met, where my caregivers abandoned me and rejected me, where I was told over and over again that who and what I was not okay, or I was made to be my caregiver's caregiver. I never should have had to do that. That was not my fault. That was the fault of my caregivers or the fault of someone else. When you let yourself be upset that your caregivers trained you, that you have to be this way, and you have to follow this life in order to be good enough, and it's causing you to hate yourself every single day that you're not that, and you let yourself just be upset about that, and you validate that, that is when you start to actually step into empowerment. Being seen in our emotions, being able to see that it wasn't fair, it wasn't okay, it wasn't your fault, you didn't ask for it, is the first step in empowerment. Letting yourself admit reality. You were a victim to that. You didn't choose it. It wasn't because of you. Your caregivers failed you. Somebody was bad to you because of them. It doesn't matter what you do. You never deserve to be spoken to like you don't matter. You never deserve to be abused. You never deserve to be abandoned. When you start to allow yourself to say, wait, I just hate that. I don't want that career. I don't want that lifestyle. I don't want to be like that. I believe I have to in order to be loved and approved of. And I may have absolute clear evidence that that's true, that my caregivers really will abandon me and shame me and not approve of me if I don't do these things. And maybe I have pure evidence that if I do what I want to do and if I express what I want to express, I am going to be rejected. I am misunderstood. And that's upsetting. And we just let ourselves be upset that we don't have people around us who can just accept us for who we are, who can support us in our authentic expression, who demand that we take care of their emotions, and who aren't emotionally mature enough to moderate their own emotions, and they blame you for them. When you let yourself be upset about that stuff, you are coming into reality. You are coming into reality. That these things are not your fault. You did not choose them. They are not coming from you. Your pain is not your fault. Other people are fucking up and have fucked up. And we have to let ourselves grieve that and process that. That is the biggest step that all of the spiritual people want to miss. The grieving and the processing of the shitty things that people did to us. The conditioning that we've been through. The way we have been hurt and harmed that was not our fault. That we did not choose. And that we were a victim to. Everyone wants to skip that part. But we can't. We cannot skip that part because that part is vital in actually finding our power. Okay? Because when we let ourselves validate our actual emotions, validate that other people hurt us, validate that we are not in control of everything. Everything is not because of us. We are not the cause of our childhood trauma. We are not the cause of why our caregivers abandon us. We are not the reason someone hurt us. We can start to say, okay, now where is my power? What is my actual power? If I'm not blaming myself for things that are outside of my control. right? So that is when we can start to say, okay, now as an adult, I can be upset with my caregivers for not supporting me in being my true self. I can finally stop believing there's something wrong with me, that I'm not who they wanted me to be. And I can start to make it safe to accept myself where they never accepted me, right? This is when we can start to step into our adult perspective, where we can start to say, okay, I can be rejected. I can be misunderstood. I can be let down by other people. And I'm no longer dependent upon them for my safety and for my security. Now, as an adult, the responsibility that I have to take for myself is in that situation where I got hurt. Where am I going to put up a boundary with this person? It's not that I should have been able to predict it. It's not that I should have been able to see it coming. But in the future, now they've taught me a little bit more about who they are. So if it wasn't my fault, and I shouldn't have been able to see it coming, but now that it's happened, what did I learn? What did I learn about this person? What did I learn about what I need in this relationship? Do I need to cut it off? Do we need to have a conversation? Do I need to set up a boundary? Do I need to express how their behavior made me feel? If you're not blaming yourself, you can start to figure out where your actual power is now, right? If you're not blaming yourself that you can't be what your caregivers wanted you to be, how can you start to get on your own side and support and validate your expression even though your caregivers can't? That's hard. How can you start to say, okay, I am going to be this way, or I'm never going to be that way? And then process the pain that comes with having to face the reality that you're not going to be loved and approved of by your caregivers or your family or culture the way you want it to be. That's empowerment. Getting to a place where we can process, actually accept that we are not going to get that love, that we are not going to get that approval, and grieve that and be upset about that, and let ourselves feel like victims about that for a while. We're going to eventually come to a place where we say, okay, now it's my choice. Am I going to keep trying to fight with myself to make myself what my caregivers want me to be so that I can get their love and approval? Or am I going to let myself grieve the loss of that enough that I can start to give myself permission to be who I actually am and know that that's going to mean letting go of their approval? Right? That's your real power, is grieving the loss of how your caregivers could not accept you and do not accept you and did not support you, enough that you eventually come into your adult perspective where you say, okay, now I can support me. I can be on my own side. Things are different now. My caregivers don't have control over me anymore. I can be disapproved of by them and still be okay. So instead of spending the rest of your life trying to force yourself to be something you're never going to be, you validated yourself. You made it your caregiver's fault. You processed that pain. And then you're going to get to a place where you say, okay, the actual empowering step is to accept who I am. To accept that I'm going to be rejected for being who I am. And to learn how to do it anyways. The actual power is not how should I have seen that coming, but now that I know this about this person, what do I need to do in the future to prevent that from happening again? If I start to understand that that was them, it wasn't me, it wasn't something I did, right? So you can still predict future behavior. You can still take in what is the pattern. But if you're not blaming yourself, you'll actually be able to witness the pattern in the other person. And that's how you will protect yourself from it. Do you see what I'm saying? It's not about what did I do to trigger them. How was it my fault? It's what did this person just teach me about themselves? How did I just learn something about their behavior, their way of being, their communication style? And then what do I need to do to set myself up to be safe, either in this relationship or not in this relationship, based on them and their behavior, and actually understanding why they did what they did because of them. Do you see what I'm saying? This is why this is actual empowerment. Staying in blame, shame, and guilt means you're making something that was not your fault, and therefore you can never find the solution. Blaming yourself for someone else's behavior, you are never going to be able to change yourself enough to not trigger them into that behavior. Understanding that this person has this behavior because of them, you can say, okay, now what do I want to do with that? Do I want to set a boundary with them? Do I want to have a conversation with them and see if they can change their behavior? Do I want to say, okay, well, this person isn't a safe person and I can't be around them? You start to understand their behavior, which is something you can't control. It wouldn't matter how perfect you got. It wouldn't matter how much you changed yourself. If the person you're relating to relates in that way, something is always going to trigger them. So your power is accepting that they are like that, and then deciding what you are going to do with it. Your power is not in trying to continually make yourself what your caregivers wanted you to be, shaming and blaming and guilting yourself for the rest of your life for not fitting into the mold of the conditioning you got. Your actual power is grieving that conditioning, grieving how your caregivers failed you, grieving how they taught you to be a way that is not true to you, being upset that they couldn't support you the way you needed to be supported, seeing all the ways they rejected you, seeing all the ways that they conditioned you. And then you starting to say, okay, now as an adult, it's my job to learn to love these parts of myself. I may never get their approval. I may never get their love. But I can learn to approve of and love myself. I can learn to validate my experience. I can learn to validate who I am and start to live a life that aligns with that and feels good for me, whether or not they approve of me. When we go through that anger phase, when we go through the blaming someone else phase, it helps us see where what's happening is not our fault and not in our control. We can't control the judgments of other people. We can't control the behavior of other people. We can't make it our fault enough that we're finally approved of or that people change. What we can do is accept that other people are the way they are. We can accept that our caregivers failed us. And then we can decide what we are going to do with that. That is empowerment. So you see, blaming yourself, you're never going to be what your caregivers wanted you to be. So you're either going to be stuck in that loop forever, or you're going to let yourself process all of the painful emotions about that so you can get to a place where you can decide to be yourself anyways. Blaming yourself for the behavior of other people, you are never going to be able to change your behavior enough to make it so that someone else is different. What you can do is get upset with them and see how it wasn't your fault and see how it wasn't you that caused it. And then figure out what you're going to do about their way of being. You're going to deal with actual reality. Okay. So I find myself isolating from people who echo the shame, blame, guilt, expectations I'm internally processing, but it feels like 99% of people. But I find myself preferring the peace of validating myself. You're doing it. That's a huge part of this. We are all going to go through that phase of needing to be a little bit isolated from the people who are constantly telling us that their shitty behavior is because of us. It's not. Adults are choosing to let their patterning make them who they are, or to not take responsibility for the fact that it's never okay to be mean to people. It's never okay to shame, blame, and guilt someone. Right? We live in a culture that tells us that this is the way we all have to be. And we're all so obsessed with gatekeeping each other. And so for a lot of us, we do have to take a step back. We do have to isolate for a while. We do have to say, I'm going to stop listening to these voices so that I can get upset. I can get angry. I can get sad. I can see where these things are not because of me. And then when I can see where it was not because of me, I can figure out what I'm going to do with it. Okay, so it's not about getting angry and then just saying, well, there's nothing I can do because it's because of my caregivers. Right? We get angry at our caregivers. We get upset about all the things they rejected in us. We start to say, okay, it wasn't me that was bad, that I was angry. It wasn't me that was bad that didn't want to do that career. It wasn't me that was bad that doesn't like that way of life. That's just genuine to me. It was their fault for not supporting me. It was their fault for not validating me. It wasn't that there was something wrong with me. Then we can start to say, okay, now what do I want to do with that? Do I want to keep trying to be what they wanted me to be so that they'll approve of me? Because that's why I'm doing it. That's why I'm shaming and blaming and guilting myself. Or do I want to learn to accept that they are never going to understand, they aren't going to accept me, but I can learn to accept myself and live a life that feels good for me, whether or not they approve. That's where our power is. Right? We can start to say, okay, this person has this pattern. This is how they are. So what do I want to do? That's not change myself, but that's set a boundary or have a conversation or say I'm not comfortable with this or not be in a relationship with this person anymore based on the fact that this is how they are. You see? That's real empowerment. Shaming and blaming and guilting ourselves for things that are not because of us and not our fault will never lead us to reality and will never lead us to empowerment. It leads us to trying to control ourselves where we are not the cause, and therefore we can never change the outcome. Changing the outcome means figuring out the cause. Your caregivers didn't approve of you. They aren't going to approve of you. So now what are you going to do? This person has this behavior pattern. That's on them. So now what are you going to do? You see? That's real empowerment. And in order to get there, we have to let ourselves get angry. We have to let ourselves get upset. We have to let ourselves see where we were victims and process through all of that so that we can stop seeing ourselves as the thing that is broken and start seeing where our needs weren't met, start seeing where we were abandoned or hurt or harmed because of others, not because of us. And then we can discover what we're going to do about it. But we have to figure out where it wasn't our fault first. We have to let ourselves get angry first, because that anger will show you what it is that's out of alignment. Your emotions are going to help you understand what was actually wrong about the situation. So then you can find your power. You don't get stuck in anger forever. You don't get stuck in sadness forever, because it eventually leads you to the truth. But if you suppress it, you will never see it. Okay? Okay. So I hope that was clear. I hope that was helpful. Let me know if you have any questions or comments or concerns. If you want other videos, I'm always here. So yeah, I think that's it. Okay, it's really frustrating when it comes from well-intentioned, nice people who can't hear that they are telling us to blame ourselves. Yeah, totally. Right? People are conditioned and they don't see it. And it sucks. And you're allowed to just be like, ugh. I know you think you're trying to help me empower myself. Because you're conditioned, right? You're talking to me from your conditioning. And that sucks. It is hard. And sometimes we just have to look at them and have compassion, right? Like, oh man, you're stuck in it too. I see it. I'm sorry for you. Right? It's shitty. Okay. So that's that. I hope that was helpful. So whenever I see you, next day, next week, next month, next year, have a good whatever it is you're going to have. Thank you for being here. You are good enough. You can't change yourself enough to make other people different. So what are you going to do with how people actually are? And it's not your fault. Okay? Actual boundaries, actual conversations, actual self-acceptance, and learning that other people might not ever approve. That's real empowerment. Trying to manipulate yourself into someone where you never trigger someone else ever again or where they will love you is not the solution. And that's what shame, blame, and guilt is trying to do. If I could sum it up, shame, blame, and guilt is trying to say if I change myself enough, I will finally be loved and safe around everybody. Real empowerment is my caregivers are never going to accept me for who I am. This person has this behavior, so what am I going to do about it? How am I going to move forward without their love? How am I going to grieve that? How am I going to set a boundary? How am I going to have a conversation? How am I going to say this is a you thing and I'm not comfortable with it or I need something to change? That's actual empowerment. And we go through our anger and our sadness and our blaming other people first in order to get there. Okay? Okay. So that's that. I'll see you later.